Hi guys, welcome back to At Home with Holly. My name's Holly. I'm so glad that you're here with me today. Today it's going to be another hot one, and I have decided it's time to pick the corn. I need to get the second crop of corn in, so today is the day to harvest all the ears of corn, get it shucked, get it. Is that what it's called? Shucked is when you take it off the cup. I don't know. I'm going to peel all the silky things off, blanch it, and freeze it. So whatever that's called is what we're doing. We're processing the corn. So we're going to go ahead and get out there. This has been a week of fitting in projects whenever we can. So random little bits and projects everywhere. I'm going to take you back and show you all the things we've gotten done. We have harvested onions, almost all the onions. We have completely turned over the bed that was in the berry area that had the onions in it, and we're going to be planting a new blueberry bush there. We have done several mini harvests that are of tomatoes and cucumbers. We've made pickles. We've made bone broth from the beef bones that were in my freezer because we need to make room for the next quarter of beef that is coming in September and all the produce coming out of the garden because I have several bags of tomatoes and tomatillos, gallon freezer bags already full in my deep freezer. So lots of little projects. I'm going to take you guys back and show you some of the ones we're doing, but right now I'm going to get ready to get outside and pick this corn. So here's a before picture of what the bed that we're going to harvest all the onions and weeds out of looks like. So on this day, I just went through and really methodically just put all the red onions on one side and all the white onions on the other side and took a minute to really weed this bed. This bed was one of the beds that we built and started together this year from scratch. And whenever you do that, your weed seed bank is just really high. So this had a lot of weeds. So normally I would put a silage tarp over it for the winter, but or for the season or for a little while to kill the weeds. But, oh, look at this harvest. This was good. So these were the leftover onion plants. And so I was really happy that just about 3 weeks after the rest of my plants went in the ground, these went in the ground and they still did really well. So if you don't plant it, you're not going to get anything. So even if it's late, go ahead and plant it. But normally I'll do a silage tarp over the winter to kill off the weed seeds, but we don't have time for that. So I'm just going to top off this bed and get it ready for the next thing. Now, through this week, I also had a ton of little mini harvests, tomatillos and tomatoes and melons and peppers and cucumbers. And so I'm going to show you guys what I do with these. I just wash them all up. And then I cut off the tops or any like bad or splitting spots for the tomatoes and tomatillos, and then I throw them in the freezer. For the peppers, I go ahead and dice them up, although I had special plans for the little red spicy peppers. So I kept all those red ones to the side, but every other one I just diced up and put in a freezer bag. They freeze beautifully. For this round of cucumbers, I decided to make bread and butter pickles for some gifts for friends and family, and so I did 2 different versions, so 2 different brines. Got my jars ready, add in that bay leaf to make sure it helps with the crispiness. Got the 2 different brines going, put the slices in there, fill the jars, make sure I debubble, put the clean lids on, and then I process them. I put them in at 140, crank up the heat. When it gets to 180, I set the timer for 30 minutes and keep it between 180 and 185 for that whole 30 minutes. And then when the 30 minutes is up, I remove them, let them cool and dry completely on a towel, and they are pasteurized, processed, and all the yummy things that you want in pickles. So I did British bread and butter and just regular bread and butter. And then for the red spicy peppers, I wanted to make some sweet chili sauce, the dipping sauce that you'd use for egg rolls and all kinds of things. And so I found an awesome recipe. So I got all the things ready with the rice wine vinegar and all the garlic and chopped up the garlic and peppers, added all that stuff together, whisked in the clear gel, followed the directions. I'll link the recipe below. And it made 12 little 4-ounce jars. So now we have this on our pantry shelf. I did use my digital canner for this. I love this digital canner because you can just literally set it and walk away. So I'm excited to have this on my pantry shelf. These were the first few canning projects, and then the next day we moved on to the chickens. So the chickens went in this little cage for a few hours the first day just to introduce them to the bigger girls, and I bribed them with some melon peels so that they would try not to torment the babies. But then it was on to their temporary new home. Okay, so this is our temporary solution when introducing chicks to the rest of the chickens. We section off this area so they have their own feeder and waterers, and they have their own little crossbar in there that they can use as a perch, but the big girls can't get through, and the little girls can get through. Just on that side there's a little hole, so everybody wins and they keep getting used to each other with no major injuries, fingers crossed. And then once they get used to each other for another week or so, or however long they need it, this will be here, and then they'll all be one flock. So with all of the produce coming in, it is time to make some room in my freezer. So I had these soup bones and neck bones from the last year's quarter of a cow. So I went ahead and roasted them up, went down to the basement, grabbed some shallots that we harvested this year and dried, got enough for my 18 or 20, I'm not sure how big it is, quart stock pot. So I got some shallots, and then I went to the deep freezer and I grabbed out a bag of chopped celery that I needed to use up because it was from last year. And then I got all of that stuff ready, put it in the pot. Oh, I also needed some carrots. So I went to my carrot bowl that we have in our fridge from this year's carrot harvest, got all those ingredients ready, added them to the pot, and then I took our roasted bones. You don't have to roast the bones, but I think it just adds a nice extra level of flavor. So I went and grabbed all the roasted bones, added them to the pot as well, added a little bit of salt, and covered it with water, put it on the stove, let it simmer. I let it come to a boil, and then I turned it down to a simmer and let it go for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours until it was ready. And then I skimmed off all of the veggies, and I actually ran it through a nutbag strainer to get all the fine stuff out, and then got it ready for canning. But in the meantime, while that was cooking away inside, I went outside and I decided it was time to harvest some of these cabbages. There was 2 left over. One of them was almost splitting, and one of them was past its prime. I think some bugs for sure got to it. But so I went ahead and harvested these 2 cabbages. I gave the little one and all of the leaves to the chickens, and then the big one was for us to enjoy. We were able to make quite a bit of yummy beef bone broth. I was super, super excited about that. Made it all different sizes, some in the little half pints, some in the pints. And then that takes us back up to present day, where it is time to harvest our corn. pretty good. Look at this. Beautiful. We'll just cut off that tip and keep going. This is absolutely great. I'm doing this outside because the earwigs are real. And the last few times, I've been choosing to do it outside instead of inside because it's messy and the bugs should be outside, not inside. It is not the most cost-effective thing to grow corn. However, there is nothing better than sweet corn that's like half an hour old with your dinner. Let's see what one of these little ones looks like. Now this I will just throw in as a little treat for the chickens. Although, I just think it's adorable. So we had really poor germination because my seeds were very old. Some of you guys gave me some good tips about storing my corn seeds in the freezer to make them last longer, so I'll definitely try that this year. But we got much better germination when we did the 72 cell tray, and we're going to plant those this week in the same spot. So I'm excited to see with more stalks because we really only had about, I don't know, 25, 30 stalks grow. So I'm excited to see I think we have about 60 or 70 that germinated. So we'll see how much corn that gets us. And that's an early maturing variety, so we have plenty of time. It should be done the end of September if we plant it right now. And our first frost isn't until mid to late October normally. This corn looks great. So this actually isn't the first time that we're harvesting from this little 4x4 section of corn. Olivia and I had enjoyed having it as a side dish a few times over the last couple weeks, and I'm super thrilled with being able to take that little 4x4 section of a raised bed and turn it into putting this much of it in my freezer. Oh, that earwig just hit my face and bounced off. We're gonna get the rest of this cleaned up and processed. So once the pot that I used to blanch the corn was freed up, I got to thinking, I'm like, you know what? I made beef bone broth. Maybe I should make some chicken bone broth too. So same process as we did with the beef. I took the bones from the freezer. I took all the veggies that we had on hand and added it to the pot with some water and some salt and let it start boiling and simmering. The only difference was I actually used bones from chicken that we had already roasted for meals previously, so I just didn't roast these like I did with the raw beef bones, but similar process. So I let this simmer most of the day, and then I turned it off overnight and turned it back on the next day and got started on outdoor projects. Speaking of outdoor projects, I wanted to show you that these are the black swallowtails caterpillars that Olivia has been rescuing from the birds to make sure they grow into beautiful butterflies this year. Okay, while that bone broth is going, the very last thing we're going to do on our list is get this new blueberry bush planted in the berry bed that we took all the onions out of and weeded and topped off. So this is our last berry bed in our row of berries. So I grabbed my harvesting apron so I could carry everything, but I've got Trifecta Plus, which you don't always necessarily want to fertilize perennials when you plant them, but this one looks stressed. So we're going to get this blueberry plant in the middle of this bed, get it watered in, and that should be it for our projects today after we finish canning the bone broth. I think I want some landscape fabric on this, even if it's just for a season or two. I think I want to do the middle and then have the ends be some strawberry plants. Let me go grab that. Okay, this bed was so weedy when I harvested the onions that it just kind of makes sense to give it a season or two and help it along with the weed fabric to kind of suppress the weed seed bank that's in there. And then I can pull it out. Ooh, I moved that and there's all these worms in there. So that is a great sign. Let's get this rolled out. I know I should burn these holes, but it's 1,000,000 degrees and I didn't want to look for the little propane thing. So planting it a little high because this bed I just topped off and it is kind of gonna settle a little bit. So and I totally forgot to put Trifecta in. There we go. Water that in. And just like that, we have our blueberry planted. Another hot one this week, you guys. I want to thank you guys so much for all the likes and the comments and the shares and all the support you guys have given this channel. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. We have a whole lot more growing and planting and preserving and fun projects to do. So can't wait to see you guys next time. Bye, my friend.